Okay, why don't I get started because it's 10 after. So we are in lecture 14, and we'll continue discussing human capital, which we were in education, which we just got to at the end of lecture last time. We'll have a couple more lectures on this. So we have lectures 14, 15, 16, and then the midterm, and then we'll sort of continue with other topics after the midterm. And one thing about problem set 2, there's one issue. Some people emailed because they have this, what's called a small version of Stata, which couldn't accommodate the data set that I posted. So I believe Pierre has posted a smaller version for those with small Stata. The solutions will be the same. Obviously, the results will look a little different because he took like a random sample of the data. But due to that mix-up, as well as the fact that some are concerned about having a little less time, the problem set will be due on Thursday. There's an upside and a downside to that. The upside is you have a little more time. The downside is there's less time between when that's handed in and the midterm. We're going to pass out solutions right after lecture next Thursday, so you have them to study for the midterm, which will be 5 days later. But obviously, you won't get the graded problem sets in time for that to be useful. But hopefully, if you have the solutions, you'll kind of figure out what you did. Does that sound good? Any other questions or thoughts? Yes. The reason is some people had a small version of Stata, so they couldn't even open the data set for an extra day. So they lost a day, and I didn't want to kind of be unfair to them because they wouldn't have had that day. Other people had the other version of Stata, and then they would have had less time. So now everybody, they still have less time, but there's like an extension, so hopefully. Make sense? Just to try to be fair. Any other thoughts or questions? Okay, so let's get back to the Girls Scholarship Program. We started discussing this last time. This is another randomized evaluation in Western Kenya, and taking place in 127 schools. And the way it worked was the girls who were strong academic performers on an academic test received a prize, and the prize came both in the form of having their school fees paid, but also cash that was given to their family. Over 2 years, there was also an award ceremony, and so definitely there was an attempt to incentivize people through all these different channels. And right at the end of class last time, we started talking about the different ways in which an incentive like this might affect school performance. And you could think of a bunch of different ways. The cash that's coming into the family could affect the kids. The kids might be happy to earn money for their family. The way that the program was framed by the NGO when parents were informed of the program was, hey, we're going to pay school fees and we're going to give you some money if your child does well in this exam, and we want you to use this money for school supplies and books and notebooks and other things to sort of further their education, although there was no monitoring of how the money was spent. The money's fungible anyway. So, but that was sort of the way it was framed. The kids, the girls might have been excited to get that money that they could use for school fees and school supplies. The parents, So because the kids were into it, the kids may have studied harder, or tried harder on their tests, or just done other things to do better. But because the money went to the household, parents' involvement might have changed as well. So the parents might have said, wow, $38 is a lot of money. Why don't you, speaking to their child, why don't you not do as much chores today, but go study for that test you're taking next week, sort of thing. So there might have been some reallocation of time or activities within the home in order to free up time for the child to study. So that's another possibility. Even beyond what goes on in the household, there might have been changes in the school. So, teachers who are teaching the grade 6 or standard 6 class, they want their students to do well. They want their girls to win some of these awards. So they may have changed their behavior as well. They may have tried to think up creative new lesson plans. They may have started using iClickers. They may have assigned more homework to try to get the kids to work harder in class. So those are all the kind of positives. What are some of the potential negatives in terms of the incentives that this program creates, whether it's incentives within the household or in the classroom? Can you think of any downsides? Yeah, Peter. Yeah, so that's right. So they could increase competition. Let me be clear about the way it was set up. The top 15% was the top 15% among all the treatment schools in the district. So that helps a little bit. If it was literally the top 15% in each school, it would be like, okay, there are 30 of you in the school, the top X of you are going to win, and the rest won't. But because it was the top 15% in the district, it does blunt the competition a little bit. But it does create a more competitive environment. There's more on the line, and maybe that changes the dynamic. Tara. Yeah, so there could be a couple things. One could be the kids could be demoralized that they didn't win. Maybe if they don't feel they have a chance to win, they'll just check out entirely. They'll kind of give up. Or maybe this will be a very strong marker of performance for parents that will somehow affect behavior. There was another hand up in the back, or yeah, sorry, there was one in the back.
Households that have male and female kids, you talk about how the girl might get less time on chores so they can study the test. So they actually study less for the test and not for the school. Maybe they'll get pulled out of school a couple days just so they can work on their class.
That's right. So there could be negative externalities on boys or on girls that are not competing for that award. It could kind of happen to either group. But the kids that are not sort of competing for this money could get hurt potentially. Yeah. That's right. So in general, there could be growing inequality from this, and that just changes the dynamic. It sort of relates to this point about maybe having a culture of competition in the classroom that could be good or bad, depending on what we want, or good or bad for different people. There could be distributional consequences. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Exactly, right. And we'll have some data on that I'll show you in a few slides. But when we started discussing, so again, this is the same NGO we did the deworming project with, and they were very interested in ways to keep girls in school and motivate girls at this key point where girls tend to drop out of primary school. And when we were kind of crafting this program with them or thinking up the design, these were all the things we were very concerned about. Like, are we going to see demoralization or negative effects? And when we were doing surveys, we were trying to monitor what happened. We'll see in the results of how it all shook out. Okay, any other thoughts on either positive or negative effects of these incentives? Yeah. About a third, it's a good question, about a third of the girls in the baseline sample ended up going to secondary school in the control group, and that went up in the treatment group. So it's about a third went on for more. And among the others, there will certainly be big chunks who will, within a few years after leaving school, marry locally and very often have kids in their late teen years, something like that. So certainly, completing primary and going to secondary was common in the sense that it was a third of people, but it wasn't the median. The median girl who started in grade 6 would have dropped out before grade 8. So this was attempting to kind of change that or incentivize people to change. Okay, so let's talk through this, just building on what we were just talking about. There's a whole literature in psychology, and I'll just touch on it briefly, about the role of extrinsic and intrinsic motivation behind human behavior. Where extrinsic motivation is basically things like external incentives, rewards that others give you, money, and any sort of positive feedback you get from others for your choices or your behavior. And intrinsic motivation is how it makes you feel about yourself, sort of independent of how others react to it. And one of the big concerns with introducing incentives, not just in this program, but you hear this in the economics of education literature all the time, or the education literature all the time, is the fear that a high-stakes competitive environment, and you hear this in the US with all the high-stakes testing that we have, which we didn't used to have nationally, is this is going to really erode the intrinsic motivation that people have. That once you basically tell kids, hey, study hard so you can get some money, they're going to associate in their minds that studying is something I do to get money. And then if you don't give them money next time, maybe they just won't care. They're not going to do it for the sake of doing it. They're not going to do it because they want to learn. They're going to do it for money. Now, the truth is, in many school systems, including in Kenya, which has a very high-stakes grade 8 exam to let you enter secondary school, there already are a lot of returns to doing well on your tests. Meaning you can get into secondary school, and getting secondary school, and you can get a better job and all that. So there are a lot of extrinsic returns out there already. But we saw this very much as an open question in terms of what would happen to intrinsic motivation. So I'll show you some. We had some survey questions we asked students about how much they liked school or studying or school-related activities, and we wanted to ask the question, like in the treatment group, are people kind of like not that into school anymore per se because they're getting rewarded through money for studying? And this is obviously an important issue. Another key channel, we talked about this a little bit, that could be important, or another dimension of how the program could have impact, could work through teacher effort. And there's also sort of an intrinsic and extrinsic aspect of this. On the one hand, if you're the grade 6 teacher and tons of your girls in your class win these scholarships, you could get a lot of external recognition. The headmaster, the head teacher could be very happy with you, the parents could be really happy with you, maybe they'll give you gifts or sort of shower you with praise. At the same time, people on their own want to help their own students, and they want to feel good about themselves as teachers. They want to be seen internally to themselves as good teachers. So there's a lot of different dimensions or paths through which teacher effort might improve. We already talked about parental encouragement. There's one other dimension here, which is community mobilization. Let me explain a little bit about what that means. In the treatment communities, one thing that is possible is parents in the grade 6 class will get together to do some fundraising for their class or for the school to boost academic performance overall. Now that a lot of their girls have the chance of to win one of these awards, this is not a far-fetched idea in Kenya. So there's a very, very long tradition in Kenyan schools and other local projects of community fundraising. So this is the so-called Harambee tradition. Let me write that down, which is really just a kind of self-reliance or community fundraising tradition. This is just a word in Kiswahili. And in some of the interviews we did in the schools, along the way, we found that in some treatment schools, parents did get together to try to improve the teacher staff room or do other things to kind of incentivize the teachers or show their appreciation to the teachers. So there's a lot of different things that are going on. In some ways, this is an interesting project because it feels so targeted initially. Like, okay, girls sort of study harder and do well, you'll get this award. But that award could potentially change the behavior of many different individuals. And again, in our surveys, it seems like a bunch of these channels are plausible. Okay, what actors might we be missing here, or what other things come to mind as dimensions we should be collecting data on, or behaviors that might change because of this incentive? Yeah. Right, so this is a really interesting part. So I guess we kind of alluded to this before, but in a different way. So is there some notion that now that some people are kind of competing for this scholarship, that it's going to really exert peer pressure on everybody else to do better because they want to keep up with their classmates who are studying hard? So you're framing this as peer pressure probably in a good way, that basically it's going to motivate folks. The comment before also said, well, maybe this culture of competition will increase inequality and demoralize people. So the question is, if a subgroup in a classroom starts working hard because they're competing for something, is that going to generate positive or negative externalities on everybody else in the classroom? And some of the interest in this research has revolved around that question because we do have some results on that, which I'll show you. So what are people's thoughts about that kind of, yeah, Tara? Okay, so peer pressure, cooperation is possible, and I think I have a clicker question on exactly this in like a few slides. So I'll hold off on asking your guys' opinion of it until then. Yeah. So some sort of private tuition or private tutoring could increase very plausibly. Now all of a sudden, if I put a few dollars into giving my daughter more tutoring and she wins one of these awards, there's a big return to that. So we collect data on this, and I'll show you the data on this. Yeah.
I feel like the parental pressure could be way too intense because the awards or reward is so great, and these are kids, so I'd say that's the negative quality. Really increase parental pressure and even abuse if you get it wrong.
So there's some possibility that all the parents' encouragement turns into something more than encouragement. We didn't have any cases of that in our surveys, but it was something we were concerned about, and it is a lot of money, so there's a lot on the line, and certainly parent pressure was part of the story. Yeah.
So this is an NGO who's giving them,
Yeah.
so there could possibly be some displacement of other money.
Yeah, you might think, this was a relatively small program, it only lasted a couple years, so in this context I don't think it happened, but if this was like a permanent program in 500 schools or something, would it be the case that all this funding flowing into schools would be offset by reduced public allocation of money? That's a possibility. And it's something that here in a public university, people think about and talk about because there's a feeling that if we raise lots of money privately, then the state will just sort of cut back on what they give us. So it's a very real concern in some settings. Yeah.
The peer pressure cooperation could also extend to the teachers, and the teachers competing against each other, their assignments together.
Yeah, so in schools where there are two different grade 6 classes, what we call streams, maybe there's some friendly or not so friendly competition among the teachers to say, like, I'm going to get more winners than you will, and maybe that'll lead them to work harder, or what you hope it doesn't do is lead them to sabotage the other class or something. But yeah. Yeah, so manipulation was something we were actually very concerned about here, and with all these tests, the tests are administered by NGO staff and not by teachers or graded by the teachers, because there's a concern that that would be an obvious way to cheat. There have been big cheating scandals, if you guys have been reading the newspaper in US high schools too, in recent years. You can actually go into the data and find, it's like forensics, like finding patterns that would only be generated by cheating. So the NGO was concerned about that, so it was independently administered tests. That was definitely a concern. Okay, so let me talk about two research questions. We're mainly going to focus on number one. I'm briefly going to mention number two as a way to start discussing our next method, the regression discontinuity design. We're actually going to talk about that method more in the context of the Lucas and Beatty paper, but I will kind of introduce it with this paper. Question number one is, if you compare outcomes between the treatment group and the control group, you see impacts of this incentive. So like, overall, the test scores improve in schools where girls were offered merit scholarships, scholarships conditional on performance. Treatment minus control, very much like our previous design. That's based on the randomization. The second question is, what impact does winning the award do? So, it's interesting. The NGO was very interested in giving scholarships to girls and wanted to sort of reward high-performing girls, thinking they would use the money well, like they would actually continue to go on to school, et cetera. That was sort of what was behind the NGO's thinking here. But then the question is, if you're already rewarding the girls that are very good students, maybe they would have gone on to school anyway. Maybe they come from the rich families anyway. Maybe there's not much impact at all. So that's the flip side. And the idea behind regression discontinuity, just to introduce it now, but we'll come back to it at the end of the lecture, is just to say the reason why it's called discontinuity is in this program, there's a very sharp test score point above which you win a scholarship and below which you don't. So there's this really discontinuous situation. If you get, up to whatever, I'm making up numbers, 73 points on the exam, you don't get a scholarship. But if you get 74, you get $38. So there's this huge jump in the assistance you get if you go from 73 to 74. And the idea behind regression discontinuity design is the people who get 73 and the people who get 74 are pretty darn close. So maybe we can just compare those guys and compare outcomes there. And we'll talk about when you can do that and when you can't. But that's the second research question. So let me go through the kind of first question, and by now this is all going to be very familiar to you because we've seen several randomized evaluation papers. One of the first things we often check is, did the randomization work in the sense that it produced groups that were similar at baseline? So this is just for, actually there were two districts in the program, and that's going to be an issue we'll talk about. I'm just showing the data for Busia district, but it's similar in Tesso, the other district. What we have up here are the mean outcomes for the program group or treatment group and the comparison group or control group. And you can see that in terms of the age of the kids, they're about 13 years old on average in grade 6. Kids start school a little later in Kenya on average, and there's a lot of repetition, so that's part of the reason why. Their fathers and mothers each have about 4 to 5 years of schooling on average, so not very well educated. They come from big families, 6 to 7 kids in the household on average. About half are ethnic Luyas. There's also ethnic Tessos in this area on the border between Busia and Tesso district. There's also a few Luos. And then you can see some of the asset ownership, latrine ownership, iron roof ownership. The basic point is there's a lot of balance across these different characteristics. None of these differences are statistically significant. So it looks like they're quite comparable at baseline. Remember, we talked about test scores before. Remember that in education, we typically normalize test scores to be mean 0, standard deviation 1, just to facilitate comparison across studies. And part of the reason why there's a little bit of difference here, why they're not exactly 0, is these are slightly different subsamples. So for instance, this subsample here called the baseline subsample are people for whom we have complete data, including all the baseline test score data and baseline survey data, et cetera. And then we have this main sample, which is basically slightly different inclusion criteria, but they're almost the same. They're almost the same, and you can see there's no significant difference in test scores for either, and the differences are pretty small, like 0.04 standard deviation unit. So the balance looks pretty good. This is the distribution of test scores in the program group in comparison, in other words, treatment and control. What differences, if any, do people see here? Where is there a little bit of movement in the distribution? Well, this is baseline. This is all baseline now. This is baseline. Sorry, yeah, we're going to come down in 2 slides. So this is the sort of same data as the baseline sample data, I believe. And you're right, there's movement in the middle. This is not a significant difference. We showed you that before. When we show the post-program difference, you're going to see more. The right tail of the distribution and the left tail are pretty much on top of each other, but there's a little difference in the middle, but not a statistically significant difference. Okay. So what do we find? And I'll show you the kind of equivalent of that plot ex post. The basic findings, on average, when we announce to these schools at the beginning of the school year that there's going to be a competition. In other words, there's going to be a test at the end of the school year, and the top 15% of performers are going to get these $38. We announce it like 7 or 8 months in advance. When we then go and test them 7 or 8 months later and administer the tests, test scores in the treatment group improve by between 0.15 and 0.18 standard deviation units on average, and that's a statistically significant difference. So there is some improvement. Does anybody remember that rule of thumb? I think I mentioned it when we were talking about deworming of what test score effect is considered kind of like a meaningful effect in education. Does anybody remember that? Well, a little larger than that. Maybe I didn't say it. So usually when it's about 0.2 of a standard deviation unit, people say that's kind of like a meaningful effect. I don't know why that is, but that's often the number that people use or talk about. So we're a little less than that. So this is sort of a moderate, small to moderate effect. I mean, it's positive, it's significant. It's not a huge effect. It's certainly positive. And this is the distribution afterwards. So this is the ex post distribution. And I think here visibly you can see a lot more movement again in the middle, but like there seems to be a lot of mass that's missing where there should be some sort of mode in the middle. It seems like it shifted to the right. And the winning threshold is at about 1 standard deviation, a little more than 1 standard deviation. That was sort of above that score you won. So you can see that's where a lot of the mass shifted, basically just around 1 standard deviation. Okay, so again, these are kernel densities. The blue line is the treatment group. The red line is the comparison group. The comparison group still has this sort of almost normal looking shape, but the blue distribution is flatter on top, so it looks like people are kind of shifted to the right around this 1 standard deviation mark, which is the winning threshold. So people that were kind of near there seem to show a little bit more of an effect. What do you see? Yeah, go ahead.
What are the units for label on the left-hand axis? And also, in the years that this program was done, was there a change in the monetary program? Like next year will be higher units?
Okay, so those are 2 good questions. So the y-axis here, sorry about that. The vertical axis here is just the density. So this is it doesn't have a natural interpretation, but it's sort of like you can think of it as the proportion of the sample at those different points. But since this is continuous, they don't exactly add up to 1. The program it was offered twice, 2001 and 2002, with the exact same monetary amount both times. So it was the $38 plus the public award ceremony and whatnot both times. Yeah. The grading was exactly the same. It was the same exact uniform test. So I think one interpretation is just at different points in the distribution, there may have been somewhat greater